Angel Has Fallen, the third installment in the Fallen film series following Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen, features a cast of seasoned actors who bring depth and nuance to their roles. This chapter of the franchise leans heavily on the chemistry and gravitas of its main cast, particularly Gerard, Butler, Morgan Freeman, and newcomers like Danny Huston and Jada Pinkett Smith. Each actor carries a distinct history in Hollywood, and their inclusion in this action thriller adds layers of credibility and emotional weight to what might otherwise be a standard action fare. Gerard Butler reprises his role as Mike Banning, the Secret Service agent whose loyalty and resilience have been central to the series. Butler, a Scottish actor who initially trained as a lawyer, rose to global fame with his breakout role as King Leonidas in Zack Snyder's 300. His physically commanding presence and intense screen persona made him a natural fit for action roles, though his early career also included romantic comedies like The Ugly Truth and P.S. I Love You. In the Fallen series, Butler has carved out a niche for himself as a gritty, morally complex action hero. Angel Has Fallen presented an opportunity for him to deepen the character of Mike Banning, portraying a man grappling with physical trauma, psychological burden, and political betrayal. This installment humanizes Banning more than previous films, offering Butler space to flex emotional depth beyond gunfights and explosions. The film reinforced Butler's status as a bankable action star and allowed him to continue building a brand around tough, working-class heroes with hearts of gold. Morgan Freeman plays Alan Trumbull, who ascends from vice president in previous films to president of the United States in Angel Has Fallen. Freeman's legendary voice and dignified demeanor lend authority to any role he inhabits. By the time of this film's release, Freeman had already won an Academy Award and amassed a vast filmography, including iconic roles in films such as The Shawshank Redemption, Driving Miss Daisy, $1 Million Baby, and Seven. His participation in the Fallen series adds a layer of gravitas and stability, acting as a moral compass within a turbulent political narrative. In Angel Has Fallen, Freeman's portrayal of Trumbull is both presidential and personal, especially during the hospital scenes, where he conveys quiet strength and trust in Banning. Although this film did not significantly alter Freeman's already cemented legacy, it did showcase his ability to bring warmth and gravitas even to a high-octane action setting. Danny Huston joins the cast as Wade Jennings, Mike Banning's former military comrade turned antagonist. Huston, known for his intense roles in films like 30 Days of Night, X-Men Origins, Wolverine, and TV series such as American Horror Story, brings a simmering intensity to Jennings. His performance balances menace with a hint of regret, making the villain feel more like a misguided patriot than a cartoonish adversary. Huston's presence adds complexity to the conflict and underlines the film's themes of betrayal and disillusionment within military and government institutions. Angel Has Fallen gave Huston another opportunity to display his versatility and reinforce his niche as a compelling character actor who often blurs the line between antagonist and antihero. Jada Pinkett Smith plays FBI agent Helen Thompson, a determined investigator who suspects Banning may be involved in the assassination attempt on President Trumbull. Pinkett Smith has had a long career spanning action, drama, and comedy, with memorable performances in Set It Off, the Matrix sequels, and the TV series Gotham. Her role in Angel Has Fallen, though not the largest, brings a sharp edge to the investigation subplot and adds another strong, assertive female presence to the story. Her portrayal of Thompson is confident and no-nonsense, making her a believable counterpoint to Banning. While the role didn't necessarily redefine her career, it did reintroduce her to action audiences and demonstrated her enduring screen presence. Lance Reddick portrays Secret Service Director David Gentry, a role that he fills with his characteristic poise and understated authority. Reddick, who gained fame for his roles in The Wire and Fringe, often played figures of power and discipline, and his inclusion in this film is no exception. In Angel Has Fallen, Reddick's Gentry plays a critical role in the unfolding investigation and ultimately sides with the truth, reinforcing themes of integrity and justice. Reddick's contribution, though not flashy, adds depth to the internal dynamics of the Secret Service and reminds viewers of his unique ability to command attention with subtlety. Sadly, This role is now remembered as part of his impressive body of work following his untimely passing, and it remains a testament to his ability to enrich any ensemble cast. Piper Perabo steps in as Leah Banning, replacing Radha Mitchell from the previous two films. Perabo is best known for her breakout role in Coyote Ugly and her lead role in the TV series Covert Affairs. Her version of Leah Banning is more domestic and grounded, providing emotional support to Mike while also dealing with a threat to their family. Her performance helps balance the action-heavy storyline with moments of emotional authenticity. Although the recasting was initially jarring for some viewers, Perabo brings a maternal warmth and strength to the role that complements Butler's weary, battered hero. Her performance added an emotional core to the film and demonstrated her range beyond television. Nick Nolte plays Clay Banning, Mike's estranged and paranoid father, living off the grid in the woods. Nolte's career spans decades, with iconic roles in films like 48 Hours, The Prince of Tides, Affliction, and Warrior. His portrayal of Clay is one of the standout elements of Angel Has Fallen. A reclusive, grizzled veteran with survivalist tendencies, Clay provides both comic relief and a deeper understanding of Mike's psychological baggage. Nolte's performance is at once tragic and humorous, and his interactions with Butler reveal a father-son relationship that is strained but ultimately redemptive. The casting of Nolte was widely praised, and for many viewers, his character stole the show. It served as a reminder of Nolte's tremendous acting chops and gave him a late-career role that resonated with audiences. With such a strong cast, Angel Has Fallen benefits from performances that elevate the film above standard action fare. Each actor brings their unique strengths and cinematic legacies to the table, creating a story anchored not just in spectacle, but in character-driven drama. The film helped Gerard Butler solidify his place as a durable action star while offering character actors like Nolte and Houston a chance to shine in memorable roles. Although not a career-defining film for most involved, it contributed meaningfully to their filmographies and demonstrated how ensemble casting can enhance storytelling even in an action-heavy franchise. Angel Has Fallen arrived in theaters in 2019 at a time when global politics, public trust in government institutions, and concerns about misinformation were at the forefront of public discourse. Although the film is fundamentally a high-octane action thriller, it inadvertently tapped into anxieties that were prevalent in Western societies, particularly those surrounding loyalty, betrayal, surveillance, and political instability. While it may not have had the same cultural penetration as a superhero blockbuster or a socially driven indie film, Angel Has Fallen carved a modest niche in contemporary pop culture through its themes, archetypes, and reflection of broader societal concerns. The film centers around a false flag assassination attempt on the president, which leads to the protagonist, Mike Banning, being framed and hunted by his own government. This plot echoed a growing fear in real-world politics where disinformation, deep-state conspiracy theories, and lack of transparency had become increasingly common topics in media and political rhetoric. During the late 2010s, political polarization and distrust in institutions were mounting. Films like Angel Has Fallen served as both entertainment and unintentional commentary on how quickly heroes can become suspects and how truth is often buried beneath layers of corruption and power plays. In that sense, Angel Has Fallen spoke to the unease felt by many about the fragility of democratic systems. The idea that a decorated Secret Service agent could be disavowed, hunted, and betrayed by the very government he had sworn to protect felt uncomfortably plausible to audiences increasingly skeptical of authority. Even though the film doesn't delve deeply into political nuance, it reflects a sentiment of cynicism and disillusionment that had become widespread by 2019. The film's villains aren't cartoonish foreign invaders, but rather insiders, former comrades, private military contractors, and bureaucrats within the system, which heighten the narrative's resonance with real-world concerns about internal corruption. The cultural impact of Angel Has Fallen also extends into how action heroes are portrayed in modern cinema. Unlike the near-invincible figures of previous decades, Mike Banning is portrayed as a physically and mentally exhausted man dealing with trauma, dependency on medication, and the pressure of living up to impossible expectations. This more vulnerable, aging hero archetype is consistent with the trend of humanizing action protagonists seen in other films like Logan or John Wick. In a world that had become more aware of PTSD, burnout, and the human cost of service, banning struggles were relatable and timely, especially among veterans and first responders. The film contributed to the broader conversation about the unseen psychological toll of heroism and the difficulties of reintegration into a civilian world. From a pop culture standpoint, Angel Has Fallen did not become a meme powerhouse or internet sensation, but it did generate discussion within online action movie communities. The inclusion of Nick Nolte as Clay Banning sparked a wave of appreciation and humor, especially for his offbeat, paranoid survivalist persona. Memes featuring Nolte's wild-eyed expressions and homemade explosives circulated briefly, particularly on platforms like Reddit and Twitter, where his character was embraced as a symbol of unhinged preparedness and old-school grit. His cabin booby trap scene became a standout moment, with many viewers calling it one of the most unexpectedly entertaining sequences in an otherwise serious narrative. These moments contributed to the film's staying power in digital conversations even after its theatrical run ended. Moreover, Angel Has Fallen became part of a broader trend in which movie franchises shifted focus from global threats to more personal stakes. While the first two installments in the series centered around large-scale terrorist attacks on national landmarks, Angel Has Fallen turned the lens inward, examining personal betrayal, internal corruption, and father-son reconciliation. This shift paralleled a movement in Hollywood toward more character-driven action narratives. Audiences had grown weary of over-the-top destruction and instead began favoring stories where emotional weight and internal conflict were prioritized. Angel Has Fallen's relative success, despite its lower budget compared to many blockbusters, reinforced the viability of this storytelling model. The movie also played a role in the evolving representation of government and military forces in action cinema. Where previous decades often painted these institutions as heroic and infallible, modern films like Angel Has Fallen depict them as flawed, bureaucratic, and sometimes dangerous. This depiction resonates with a generation raised in the post-9/11 world, shaped by prolonged wars, intelligence scandals, and shifting alliances. Although Angel Has Fallen doesn't overtly critique the military-industrial complex, it subtly acknowledges its darker elements through the character of Wade Jennings, a private contractor who embodies the blurred lines between patriotism and profiteering. This character serves as a mirror to real-world debates about the ethics of outsourcing war to private firms and the lack of accountability in those arrangements. In terms of historical significance within the action genre, Angel Has Fallen represents a turning point for mid-tier action films that exist outside the superhero and franchise-saturated market. With a modest budget and practical effects, the film proved there was still an appetite for straightforward, grounded action movies anchored by compelling performances rather than CGI spectacle. This was especially important during a time when the film industry was dominated by comic book adaptations and sprawling cinematic universes. Angel Has Fallen held its own by offering a story that, while formulaic, was earnest and tightly executed. This reasserted the value of traditional action filmmaking and paved the way for other similar films to find success. Internationally, the film also found audiences who appreciated its depiction of loyalty, perseverance, and family. The father-son dynamic between Mike and Clay resonated across cultures and demographics. While the American political undertones may not have been universally understood, the emotional core of the story, the redemption of a broken man through reconnection with his roots, proved to be a universal theme. The film performed well in overseas markets, particularly in regions that favor action thrillers with clear moral arcs and strong protagonists. Finally, Angel Has Fallen contributed to the ongoing legacy of Gerard Butler as a reliable action star outside the traditional Hollywood elite. In an era where most action leads were either part of a franchise or comic book universe, Butler's sustained career through original action roles was a quiet but meaningful statement about longevity, work ethic, and staying power. Fans rallied around the film as a return to basics in a cluttered media landscape, reinforcing a cultural yearning for simplicity, loyalty, and unambiguous courage. The making of Angel Has Fallen was marked by a mix of logistical challenges, creative risks, and passionate contributions from a seasoned team determined to breathe fresh life into a franchise that could have easily followed a predictable path. Behind the scenes, the film's production story is as compelling as its on-screen action. While the movie carries the aesthetics and energy of a big-budget Hollywood blockbuster, it was produced with a tighter budget than many of its contemporaries. This constraint forced the filmmakers to be resourceful and precise in every phase, from location scouting to stunt execution and special effects. Filming took place primarily in the United States, with significant portions shot in Virginia and around the Atlanta, Georgia area. Georgia, in particular, has become a popular filming destination due to its generous tax incentives for film production, and its varied landscapes made it an ideal stand-in for Washington, D.C. and other locations depicted in the film. The decision to film in and around Atlanta allowed the production team to shoot complex action sequences, such as the drone attack on the president's motorcade, with fewer bureaucratic limitations than would have been encountered in actual government spaces. These practical choices allowed the filmmakers to prioritize action and narrative flow while keeping costs under control. Director Rick Roman brought a unique sensibility to the film. Having started his career as a stuntman before transitioning into directing, Waugh was particularly focused on authenticity in physical performance and realism in action. His background gave him a clear advantage when directing intense physical scenes. He knew how to block action in a way that felt natural yet thrilling. Waugh's previous directorial work, including Shot Caller and Snitch, had a strong emphasis on character-driven tension within gritty, dangerous environments. This experience influenced his approach to Angel Has Fallen, where he aimed to elevate the genre by giving weight to emotional and psychological elements, especially in Mike Banning's arc. One of Waugh's primary goals was to reintroduce vulnerability into the action genre. He was adamant that Banning not appear as an invincible Superman, but instead as a man slowly breaking down from years of trauma and physical punishment. The idea was to bring audiences closer to Banning's experience, creating empathy rather than just admiration. This meant Gerard, Butler, had to embody not just physical strength, but also visible exhaustion, injury, and emotional strain. The director and actor collaborated closely to balance these qualities, even adjusting dialogue and action beats during rehearsals to better reflect Banning's mental and physical state. The drone sequence early in the film presented one of the most technically challenging aspects of production. Combining CGI with practical effects, the team spent weeks planning and choreographing the scene to ensure a believable sense of chaos and urgency. Visual effects teams worked in tandem with on-set pyrotechnics and stunt coordinators to simulate drone strikes, debris, and vehicle explosions. Although the drones themselves were digital creations, the effects on the ground, smoke, fire, overturned vehicles, were captured using real-world practical effects whenever possible. This blend helped ground the film's action in a level of realism that is often missing from CGI-heavy blockbusters. Another complex set piece was the cabin defense sequence featuring Nick Nolte's character, Clay Banning. Nolte's character lives in a secluded woodland cabin rigged with traps and explosives, and the entire location was built from scratch to accommodate the explosive action that would unfold. The set had to be safe for actors and stunt doubles, while still allowing for believable destruction. Production designers and special effects technicians coordinated closely to ensure the explosions were spectacular but controlled. Nolte, known for his improvisational instincts, also infused the scenes with unpredictable energy, occasionally ad-libbing lines that added humor and humanity to the intense scenario. His scenes were shot over several days and involved a combination of rigged charges, breakaway props, and tightly choreographed stunt work. The physical demands on Gerard, Butler during the shoot were considerable. Already dealing with real-life injuries from past action films, Butler performed many of his own stunts, including running, hand-to-hand combat, and various climbing and escape scenes. The actor worked with a personal trainer and a medical team to manage pain and prevent further injury during the shoot. Butler has publicly stated that the wear and tear from doing so many action roles has taken a toll, but he remains committed to authenticity and believes it helps connect audiences more deeply to his characters. This commitment also inspired the production team, who responded to his work ethic by pushing for greater realism and emotional nuance in each scene. Costume and makeup teams also played a key role in conveying the toll taken on the characters. Extensive prosthetics and makeup were used to depict bruises, lacerations, and the constant dirt and grime that accumulated on Banning throughout the film. As the narrative progressed, his appearance became more disheveled and wounded, reinforcing the idea that he was being worn down physically and emotionally. Behind the scenes, maintaining continuity of these details was a constant challenge, requiring careful coordination between departments during reshoots and out-of-sequence filming days. The supporting cast also contributed to the film's depth. Lance Reddick, playing Secret Service Director David Gentry, brought a composed intensity to his role and was praised by the director for his precision and professionalism. Jada Pinkett Smith's scenes were often shot during night schedules, and despite limited screen time, she reportedly worked closely with the stunt team to ensure her movements and firearm handling appeared natural and grounded. The ensemble's commitment helped elevate the procedural and investigative subplots, providing contrast to the more explosive action sequences. From a logistical standpoint, the film's tight production schedule required careful planning. Multiple second-unit crews worked simultaneously to capture background shots, vehicle sequences, and inserts that would later be integrated into the main footage. The editing team had to work quickly, reviewing dailies and assembling rough cuts while filming was still ongoing. This real-time feedback loop allowed director Rick Roman to adjust scenes and performances on the fly, a luxury not always available on larger productions with slower turnaround times. Sound design and scoring also began while filming was still in progress. The filmmakers aimed for a more grounded auditory environment, emphasizing the mechanical whir of drones, the brutal impact of gunfire, and the quiet spaces in between chaos where characters confront their thoughts. Composer David Buckley started sketching musical themes during the earliest stages of production, shaping motifs that would reflect Banning's internal conflict and the film's underlying themes of betrayal, redemption, and familial bonds. Angel Has Fallen follows a carefully structured narrative that balances high-stakes action with character-driven storytelling. As the third entry in the Fallen series, it departs from the purely external threats of its predecessors and instead explores more personal territory, centering on betrayal, redemption, and internal conflict. The film's plot is tightly woven, unfolding in a series of escalating conflicts and revelations that gradually expose the central conspiracy. Unlike the previous installments, which focused on protecting the president from foreign attacks, Angel Has Fallen shifts the narrative lens toward Mike Banning himself, making him both the target and the center of the plot. This shift not only reinvigorates the series' formula, but also allows for a deeper exploration of Banning's psyche and the cost of loyalty. The movie begins with Mike Banning, a decorated Secret Service agent, struggling with the toll his years of service have taken on his body and mind. He experiences recurring migraines, insomnia, and physical injuries that require painkillers. This opening tone is more introspective than in previous films, showing a man at the end of his rope, contemplating a desk job, and grappling with the fear that he's no longer fit for active duty. This sets the stage for a more emotionally grounded story while still maintaining the franchise's signature action elements. The inciting incident occurs when President Alan Trumbull, now played by Morgan Freeman, is nearly assassinated in a drone attack during a fishing trip. Banning, who is present during the attack, manages to save the president's life, but is knocked unconscious in the process. When he awakens in the hospital, he finds himself handcuffed to his bed and accused of orchestrating the attack. This marks the first major plot twist and launches the narrative into a fugitive-style chase reminiscent of films like The Fugitive or Jason Bourne. The tension escalates as Banning escapes federal custody and begins to uncover a conspiracy aimed at framing him and removing President Trumbull from power. The film's first act effectively establishes the stakes, introduces the key players, and delivers a memorable action set piece with the drone strike. This sequence is not only visually arresting but also serves as a narrative pivot point. By flipping the premise from protector to fugitive, the film injects fresh tension into the series and creates an immediate emotional investment in Banning's predicament. The structure of the story from this point forward is built around his journey to uncover the truth while being hunted by law enforcement and private military forces. As the second act unfolds, the story shifts into investigative and survival territory. Banning must navigate a world where everyone believes he's guilty, relying on old instincts and limited resources. Along the way, he reconnects with his estranged father, Clay Banning, a reclusive Vietnam War veteran living off the grid. This subplot provides not only comic relief and fresh character dynamics, but also deeper insight into Banning's upbringing and internal conflicts. The cabin scenes with Clay mark a significant turning point in the narrative structure, offering a breather from the relentless pursuit and allowing character development to take center stage. These scenes also deepen the film's themes of legacy, trauma, and reconciliation. Interwoven with Banning's personal journey is the conspiracy orchestrated by Wade Jennings, the CEO of a private military company and a former comrade of Banning. Jennings is revealed as the mastermind behind the assassination attempt, motivated by the loss of government contracts and a desire to instill fear that would justify increased military spending and privatize security. This reveal provides the story's primary antagonist and establishes a thematic parallel between Banning and Jennings, both former soldiers shaped by war but with diverging moral compasses. Their relationship adds complexity to the conflict and moves the film beyond simple good versus evil tropes. The pacing in the second act is carefully modulated, alternating between action sequences and quieter investigative moments. Banning's journey takes him through a series of betrayals and close calls, including an intense highway chase, a hospital infiltration, and covert meetings with allies who are unsure of where their loyalties lie. The tension is maintained by the ever-present threat of capture and the growing pressure as Trumbull remains in a coma, unable to confirm Banning's innocence. During this time, Banning also uncovers evidence of collusion between Jennings' company and Vice President Kirby, who seeks to ascend to power by removing Trumbull from office. The third act builds toward a multi-layered climax. Banning breaks into the hospital where Trumbull is being treated, only to find himself nearly captured again. Once Trumbull awakens from his coma and confirms Banning's loyalty, the narrative pivots into its final confrontation. The climactic action sequence unfolds at the hospital as Jennings and his team launch a full-scale assault in an attempt to finish the job and kill the president. Banning, with the help of his father and a few remaining allies, mounts a defense against overwhelming odds. The firefight is intense and emotionally charged, blending spectacle with stakes that feel personal and urgent. The structure of the climax is notable for how it interweaves multiple resolutions: the physical defeat of the antagonist, the political restoration of truth, and the emotional reconciliation between Banning and his father. The final confrontation between Banning and Jennings is brutal and personal, highlighting their shared history and the diverging paths they've taken. It's not just a battle of fists and firepower, but of ideologies, one rooted in greed and fear, the other in duty and sacrifice. Following the resolution of the main conflict, the film enters its denouement with a quiet emotional beat. Banning finally decides to take accountability for his health and the emotional scars he's been carrying. He visits a therapist and considers stepping away from the Secret Service for good. The final scenes focus on healing and closure, with Banning reconnecting with his wife and child and beginning a new chapter in his life. The ending offers a satisfying emotional payoff, something rarely prioritized in action films, and underscores the narrative arc of a man who has endured much and finally found a measure of peace. Narratively, Angel Has Fallen is structured around a classic three-act format: setup, confrontation, and resolution. What distinguishes it is the layering of action with emotional depth and a central mystery that keeps the audience engaged. The use of misdirection, shifting loyalties, and character arcs elevates the film beyond a simple shoot-'em-up. The writers effectively employ a rising action curve, each sequence building tension toward the climax without feeling bloated or overcomplicated. The film also utilizes pacing strategically. Moments of high intensity, like the drone attack or the hospital siege, are balanced by quieter scenes that allow for reflection and exposition. This rhythm keeps the audience invested without inducing fatigue. Unlike many modern action films that rely on relentless set pieces, Angel Has Fallen allows its characters to breathe, to think, and to grow within the story. Beneath its surface as a fast-paced action thriller, Angel Has Fallen explores a surprising depth of thematic material, presenting not only a narrative of political intrigue and survival but also a reflection on personal decay, loyalty, identity, and the corrosive effects of war. These themes are embedded in the story through both narrative structure and symbolic imagery, elevating the film beyond mere genre entertainment and giving it emotional and philosophical layers. The use of symbolism, though often subtle, supports these themes by connecting visual and narrative cues to the characters' emotional and moral journeys. At the heart of the film lies the theme of loyalty, both the cost of it and its betrayal. Mike Banning, the protagonist, is a man defined by loyalty to his country, to the president, to his family, and to the ideals he once believed the Secret Service represented. But as the film unfolds, Banning is betrayed by the very institutions he has given his life to protect. The false framing of Banning and the conspiracy that unfolds around him represent more than a political setup. They symbolize the broader disillusionment that can come when systems of power no longer align with the values they claim to uphold. Banning's journey becomes one of rediscovering where his true loyalties lie, and the film suggests that these loyalties must ultimately be to people, not institutions. The theme of identity is also central to the narrative. Banning is not just fighting to clear his name, but to reclaim his sense of self. Over the course of the trilogy, he has been a protector, a soldier, a husband, and a father, but in Angel Has Fallen, he becomes the hunted. This reversal forces him to confront who he is without the shield of official titles or state-sanctioned power. Stripped of his badge and uniform, Banning must rely on instinct and principle. This crisis of identity is mirrored visually in scenes where Banning is literally in disguise, on the run, or hiding in the shadows. These moments represent his internal struggle, how to be a hero when the world believes he is the villain. The film also delves into the psychological cost of heroism and war, touching on the theme of trauma. Banning is portrayed not as a glorified action figure, but as a man dealing with lingering pain, physical deterioration, and mental exhaustion. His migraines, medication dependency, and difficulty sleeping are not just physical ailments, but manifestations of deeper emotional scars. He is haunted by his past and unsure of his future. This exploration of trauma adds a humanizing element to the film and invites viewers to consider the invisible wounds carried by those who serve in high-stress, life-threatening roles. The theme of trauma is further explored through the character of Clay Banning, Mike's father, who represents an earlier generation of soldiers affected by the same scars, albeit dealt with in a more isolated and paranoid way. Clay Banning serves as both a literal and symbolic figure in the film. Living in self-imposed exile, surrounded by booby traps and isolation, he represents the end state of unresolved trauma and the consequences of complete withdrawal from society. His cabin, rigged with explosives and hidden in the woods, serves as a symbolic fortress of paranoia and fear, a visual metaphor for the walls Clay has built around himself after years of distrust in the government and the world. This setting becomes the crucible in which father and son confront their emotional distance and unresolved tension. Their eventual reconciliation symbolizes a healing of generational trauma and a reestablishment of familial bonds. Redemption is another key theme running through the film. Banning seeks redemption not only in the eyes of the law but also within his own conscience. He is aware of the damage his career has done to his body and his relationships, and he wrestles with guilt and shame. Throughout the film, his decisions reflect a desire to make things right, not just by exposing the truth, but by protecting his family and ultimately choosing a new path forward. In the final scenes, when he sits down with a therapist and opens up about his fears and pain, the film offers a moment of personal redemption. This is a stark contrast to the stoic, invincible heroes of traditional action films and signals a shift in how heroism is portrayed, one that values vulnerability and emotional honesty. The theme of corruption is embodied in the character of Wade Jennings, whose transformation from soldier to mercenary reflects a moral decay that parallels the privatization of military power. Jennings represents the weaponization of loyalty for profit, and his betrayal is not just personal but ideological. His company, Salient Global, is a symbol of the blurred lines between patriotism and exploitation. The fact that he orchestrates a false flag attack to incite fear and manipulate political outcomes adds a layer of commentary on how truth and security can be manipulated by those in power. The theme of corruption is further explored through the vice president, whose complicity in the plot illustrates how ambition can lead even the highest offices astray. Symbolism is woven subtly throughout the film, with recurring visual motifs reinforcing the emotional and thematic undercurrents. The repeated use of darkness and shadow, for example, reflects the murky world of conspiracy and mistrust that Banning navigates. Many scenes are shot at night or in dim lighting, emphasizing uncertainty and the unknown. The image of Banning hiding in shadows, wearing hoods or being covered in blood and grime, reinforces his status as an outcast and a man trying to claw his way back into the light, both literally and metaphorically. The symbolism of drones in the film extends beyond their role in the assassination attempt. Drones represent faceless, impersonal violence, technology used to kill from a distance without accountability. This mirrors the film's larger concerns with disconnection. Political leaders disconnected from the people they serve, soldiers disconnected from the cause they fight for, and men like Banning and Jennings disconnected from their original ideals. The drone attack, sudden and impersonal, contrasts sharply with the intimate, face-to-face violence that defines the final confrontation between Banning and Jennings. This juxtaposition highlights the human cost of war and the loss of moral clarity in modern conflict. Family is another thematic pillar in the film, particularly the dynamic between fathers and sons. The broken relationship between Mike and Clay Banning is a metaphor for the generational divide between soldiers and how trauma is passed down. Their reconciliation is not just a subplot but a thematic resolution to the film's emotional arc. Similarly, Banning's love for his own wife and daughter grounds the story in emotional reality. His motivations are not rooted solely in patriotism or duty, but in protecting the people he loves. This emphasis on personal stakes gives the film an emotional depth that supports its action. The visual style of Angel Has Fallen reflects a deliberate effort to ground the film in realism while still delivering the intense, stylized action sequences expected from a modern thriller. Cinematographer Jules O'Loughlin, known for his work on high-energy films like The Hitman's Bodyguard and Black Sails, approached this project with a gritty, naturalistic aesthetic that emphasized physicality, emotional weight, and narrative clarity. Instead of relying heavily on slick, overly stylized visuals, the film uses its cinematography to support character development, emotional tone, and spatial coherence, critical elements in a film that juggles conspiracy, action, and personal drama. One of the most noticeable aspects of the visual style is its use of handheld and shoulder-mounted camera techniques. This decision brings a raw, immersive quality to many of the film's sequences, particularly those involving chase scenes, hand-to-hand combat, and tense dialogue exchanges. The handheld approach allows the camera to mimic the physical experience of characters, especially Mike Banning, whose viewpoint often dictates the visual rhythm of the story. In action scenes, the jittery movements and rapid adjustments of the camera convey urgency and disorientation, reflecting Banning's inner turmoil and the chaotic nature of his circumstances. In quieter scenes, the same technique creates intimacy and emotional immediacy. The film's color palette leans heavily into muted tones, grays, deep blues, browns, and washed-out greens dominate the frame. This palette reinforces the serious tone of the narrative and the moral ambiguity of its world. While previous entries in the series occasionally used high-saturation colors to heighten spectacle, Angel Has Fallen adopts a more restrained visual language. This choice supports the film's themes of corruption and decay, creating a visual environment that feels worn down, exhausted, and heavy with tension. The earthy tones used in scenes with Clay Banning, for example, reflect the raw and stripped-down nature of his lifestyle and personality, while the sterile whites and blues of the hospital settings evoke a sense of vulnerability and institutional coldness. Lighting plays a crucial role in enhancing the atmosphere and mood throughout the film. Many of the scenes are dimly lit, favoring shadows, partial lighting, and practical sources such as lamps, vehicle headlights, and natural sunlight filtering through windows. This use of low-key lighting reinforces the themes of secrecy and distrust, literally keeping characters in the dark as they try to uncover the truth. In the drone attack sequence, the lighting is bright and natural, but as chaos erupts, the clarity of the light becomes disorienting, adding to the sense of shock and vulnerability. Contrast is also used effectively during the night scenes, such as the highway chase and the forest sequences, where darkness encroaches on the characters and intensifies the threat. Visual composition in Angel Has Fallen often centers the protagonist in tight, claustrophobic framing. This reflects both the physical and psychological pressure Banning is under throughout the film. Close-up shots are used extensively, particularly in moments of emotional conflict or physical strain, drawing attention to the fatigue and pain etched on Banning's face. Wide shots, when they appear, are often reserved for establishing settings or showcasing destruction, such as the aftermath of explosions or the expansive wilderness around Clay's cabin. This contrast between tight and wide framing reinforces the dual nature of the story, personal and internal on one hand, and politically and militarily expansive on the other. The film's action choreography is shot with clarity and restraint. Rather than relying on rapid-fire editing or shaky cam to create excitement, O'Loughlin and director Rick Romanwa use longer takes and precise camera movement to allow the audience to follow the geography of each scene. This approach is especially evident in sequences like the truck convoy ambush, where the camera moves with the characters rather than cutting erratically. The result is a visceral, grounded action style that emphasizes impact over spectacle. Viewers feel the weight of every punch, the recoil of every gunshot, and the bodily exhaustion of every movement, aligning them more closely with Banning's physical experience. Special effects and visual effects are integrated into the cinematography in a way that avoids drawing attention to their artificiality. The drone attack sequence, for example, relies on a blend of digital effects and real-world stunts, with camera angles chosen to maximize immersion while maintaining plausibility. Instead of framing the attack from a god's-eye view, the film stays grounded with Banning and the other characters, using medium shots and over-the-shoulder angles to keep the audience in the middle of the chaos. This perspective enhances tension and stakes, as viewers experience the attack not as observers, but as participants. One standout example of visual symbolism is the design and shooting of Clay Banning's woodland cabin. Surrounded by trees, shadows, and homemade traps, the setting is photographed with a mix of deep focus and natural lighting, emphasizing its isolation and the cluttered, unstable mind of its inhabitant. Scenes at the cabin often use wide frames filled with objects, tools, wires, explosives, to create a sense of organized chaos. The way the camera explores this space mirrors Banning's journey through the film, entering into a place of chaos to rediscover clarity and strength. The contrast between the untamed, natural setting and the regimented environments of the government institutions also visually underscores the film's tension between individual freedom and institutional control. Symbolic use of framing appears frequently, particularly in scenes where Banning is isolated or caged. Shots through bars, fences, doorways, and windows repeatedly appear during his fugitive phase, highlighting themes of entrapment and confinement, both physical and psychological. As the film progresses and Banning begins to reclaim control, the visual style shifts subtly to include more open frames and natural backdrops, reflecting his movement toward freedom and resolution. Camera placement and movement are also used to support character dynamics. In scenes between Banning and President Trumbull, the camera often stays level, suggesting mutual respect and emotional parity. In contrast, when Banning interacts with antagonists like Jennings or the FBI agents pursuing him, the camera may shift to lower or tilted angles to convey imbalance or dominance. The use of over-the-shoulder and reaction shots throughout these exchanges ensures the viewer is continually aligned with Banning's perspective, reinforcing his role as the emotional anchor of the story. A final important aspect of the cinematography is how it supports the film's pacing. Action scenes are shot with urgency, but the camera often lingers just long enough to provide narrative clarity. This is particularly evident in sequences involving tactical maneuvers or suspenseful infiltration, where slow push-ins, steady tracking shots, and carefully timed zooms help build tension without overwhelming the viewer. In moments of reflection, such as when Banning speaks to his wife or confronts his father, the camera slows, the frame steadies, and the light softens, allowing space for character development and emotional resonance. In Angel Has Fallen, the auditory landscape plays a vital role in immersing the viewer in both the physical intensity of its action sequences and the emotional complexities of its characters. The soundtrack, composed by David Buckley, and the film's overall sound design work together to build tension, convey psychological states, and underscore dramatic beats with precision and nuance. Unlike bombastic scores designed purely for spectacle, the soundscape of this film is more strategic and layered, reflecting the film's dual emphasis on action and introspection. The musical score by David Buckley is marked by a somber, brooding quality that mirrors the emotional weight carried by the film's protagonist, Mike Banning. Buckley, who has scored films and series like The Good Wife, Papillon, and Jason Bourne, brings a refined understanding of modern thriller music. Rather than filling every moment with swelling orchestration, Buckley chooses to leave room for silence and restraint, allowing the action and dialogue to breathe when necessary. His score relies heavily on string sections, subtle percussion, and electronic textures, creating a sound that is tense, immersive, and emotionally grounded. A defining feature of Buckley's score is the use of pulsating low-frequency motifs. These motifs are woven through scenes involving tension, pursuit, or uncertainty. They serve as a kind of auditory heartbeat, reflecting Banning's escalating stress and the looming threat that surrounds him. For example, in sequences where Banning is on the run, the music tightens into a rhythmic, almost claustrophobic pulse, conveying a sense of entrapment and relentless danger. This technique is particularly effective in the early hospital escape scene, where the blending of music and sound effects creates an overwhelming sensory experience without becoming melodramatic. The score also includes thematic cues associated with specific characters and relationships. Banning's theme is somber, often built on minor key progressions with slow-building tension, reflecting his emotional exhaustion and inner conflict. When scenes focus on Banning's relationship with his family, his wife Leah and his father Clay, the music shifts to warmer, more acoustic textures. Soft piano chords and restrained string arrangements offer contrast to the darker motifs, providing emotional relief and reinforcing the idea that Banning's personal relationships are his anchor amidst chaos. These cues help guide the viewer emotionally without over-explaining the scenes. In scenes with Clay Banning, Buckley subtly integrates more raw and rustic instrumentation. Low strings and percussive elements with a rugged, earthy tone mirror Clay's off-the-grid, old-school persona. The music here is less polished and more textured, matching the unpredictability and survivalist mentality of the character. This musical differentiation gives Clay his own emotional space in the film and helps frame the cabin sequences not just as action interludes, but as key moments of personal revelation and healing. The film's sound design is equally important in shaping the narrative. Every punch, gunshot, and footstep is crafted to feel authentic and immediate. The sound team used a wide range of practical and digital elements to create a tactile soundscape that heightens the realism of the action. Instead of relying on exaggerated Hollywood-style effects, the sound of gunfire is kept relatively grounded, metallic, sharp, and echoing in environments that reflect the space, whether it's a dense forest, an urban alleyway, or a hospital hallway. This careful environmental matching ensures that the sound effects enhance immersion rather than distract from it. In the drone strike sequence, a centerpiece moment of the film, sound design takes on a leading role. The high-pitched whine of approaching drones is layered with mechanical clicks, ominous hums, and eventually the thunderous blasts of detonation. This build-up creates a sense of dread and chaos that mirrors the confusion on screen. The sound mix strategically delays the onset of full-blown explosions, starting with subtle buzzing and background noise before erupting into chaos. The contrast between quiet moments and sudden, loud destruction emphasizes the unpredictability and terror of the ambush. In these moments, Music and effects blend seamlessly, heightening suspense without overwhelming the scene. Another striking element is the use of silence and ambient noise. In moments where Banning is hiding or reflecting, the score often drops out entirely, and what remains is the raw sound of breathing, distant footsteps, or rustling leaves. These stripped-down audio choices ground the film in Banning's subjective experience and emphasize his vulnerability. The hospital scenes, particularly those involving Trumbull's coma, are notable for their minimal soundscapes, soft machine beeps, the hum of fluorescent lights, and distant chatter replace music, making the scenes feel intimate and real. This restrained approach reinforces the film's focus on human connection and emotional tension. Dialogue clarity is another critical component of the sound design. In a film where conspiracy and character motives unfold through conversations as much as through action, ensuring clean, intelligible dialogue was a priority. The sound mixing isolates vocal performances from the broader soundscape in moments of importance, allowing subtle emotions and dramatic shifts to be clearly communicated. Characters like Banning, Jennings, and Trumbull all have moments where a quiet line delivers significant impact, and the sound design gives these lines the space they need to resonate. Explosive action scenes, such as the truck ambush and the final hospital siege, rely on layered sound to maintain energy and tension. Bullet ricochets, collapsing debris, screams, and radio chatter are meticulously arranged to create a chaotic but coherent auditory experience. This layering is never random. Each element is positioned in the stereo or surround field to orient the viewer. For instance, off-screen gunfire may be heard from the left channel, drawing the viewer's attention toward an impending threat. Helicopters overhead are positioned with Doppler effects to simulate realistic movement. This level of detail adds depth and helps the viewer subconsciously understand the spatial relationships of the characters and their environment. In quieter scenes, such as the father-son conversations or Banning's personal reflections, the sound design uses naturalistic ambient noise to create mood. Wind rustling through trees, the creaking of old wooden floors, and the chirping of insects at night all help build a world that feels lived in and tactile. These sounds do not draw attention to themselves, but their presence enhances the realism and emotional texture of the film. By anchoring these moments in a believable auditory space, the film deepens the viewer's engagement with the characters' inner worlds. Upon its release in August 2019, Angel Has Fallen arrived with a mix of cautious optimism and modest expectations. As the third installment in the Fallen series, following Olympus Has Fallen, 2013, and London Has Fallen, 2016, it faced the dual challenge of living up to its predecessors while also proving that the franchise had more to offer than just explosive set pieces and familiar action tropes. While the film did not radically reinvent the genre or the franchise, it managed to surprise many with its grounded tone, emotional depth, and focus on character-driven storytelling. Reactions ranged from moderately positive to lukewarm, with critics often acknowledging improvements over the previous film and audiences responding more favorably overall. Critically, Angel Has Fallen received mixed reviews. It holds an average critic score that places it in the middle tier of action films, not a disaster, but far from a breakout hit. Many professional reviewers praised the film's attempt to shift gears, trading some of the over-the-top bombast of London Has Fallen for a more intimate, personal story centered around Mike Banning. This tonal shift was often highlighted as a strength, giving Gerard Butler more room to explore emotional vulnerability and psychological strain. Reviewers noted that Banning's struggle with traumatic brain injuries, fatigue, and aging added dimension to a character who could have easily remained a one-note action hero. The performances of the lead actors also garnered a fair share of praise. Gerard Butler's portrayal of a worn, morally conflicted Secret Service agent was often seen as one of the more grounded and committed performances in the genre. Morgan Freeman, stepping into the full-time role of President Alan Trumbull, brought gravitas and emotional resonance, even when the script didn't give him much to work with. Nick Nolte, as Clay Banning, received particular attention for his eccentric, rugged performance that injected moments of levity and poignancy into the film. His character's dynamic with Mike added a layer of father-son drama that helped humanize the otherwise action-heavy plot. However, not all reviews were favorable. Some critics took issue with the film's predictable plot structure and reliance on familiar tropes. They pointed out that, while the film aspired to say more about personal responsibility, institutional corruption, and the psychological cost of heroism, it often fell back into formulaic storytelling. The revelation of the true villain, the framing of the protagonist, and the climactic action beats followed a path that many felt had been well-trodden in similar films. While the conspiracy element added a sense of urgency, it did not surprise seasoned viewers, and some reviewers labeled the twists as telegraphed or uninspired. Pacing was another point of contention. Some found the middle act too slow, with lengthy scenes of dialogue and exposition that, while designed to deepen character, occasionally undercut the film's momentum. Others appreciated the breather, seeing it as a welcome shift from the nonstop assault of action in the previous film. The slower pacing allowed the film to explore themes such as loyalty, legacy, and the moral ambiguity of violence, but for audiences expecting wall-to-wall action, this tonal shift may have felt jarring or underwhelming. On the technical side, Angel Has Fallen received moderate praise. Critics acknowledged the effectiveness of its action sequences, particularly the drone attack and the truck convoy ambush, both of which were noted for their clarity, intensity, and sense of spatial geography. Unlike many contemporary action films that rely heavily on rapid editing and shaky camera work, Angel Has Fallen was commended for its coherent visual language and practical effects. Sound design and cinematography were also highlighted positively, though not universally celebrated. In terms of audience reception, Angel Has Fallen fared considerably better. General moviegoers responded more positively than critics, giving the film solid audience scores and favorable word of mouth. Many viewers appreciated the character-driven approach, the grounded portrayal of an aging hero, and the emotional undercurrents present in the father-son subplot. For fans of the franchise, the film delivered the kind of patriotic, high-stakes drama they expected, while also offering something slightly more introspective and personal. The film's balance of action and heart was cited by many as a reason it stood out among summer blockbusters in 2019. At the box office, Angel Has Fallen performed modestly well. With a production budget reported to be around $40 million, it earned over $146 million worldwide. This return, while not record-breaking, was respectable, particularly for a third entry in a mid-budget franchise. Its success reinforced the market viability of character-focused action thrillers and suggested that there was still an appetite for stories centered around flawed, human heroes rather than invincible supermen. The film also benefited from being released during a relatively quiet period in the movie calendar, allowing it to attract viewers looking for late summer entertainment. Some criticisms also centered on the film's political subtext, or lack thereof. While the earlier Fallen films were criticized for nationalistic overtones and problematic portrayals of international politics, Angel Has Fallen attempts to shift focus inward, exploring corruption within the American defense and security apparatus. For some critics, this shift felt timely and welcomed, reflecting post-Iraq and post-9/11 anxieties about private military contractors and the militarization of law enforcement. Others, however, felt the film failed to fully engage with its political themes, opting instead for surface-level engagement that stopped short of real critique. The character of Wade Jennings, a former soldier turned defense contractor, seemed like an opportunity to delve into the ethics of privatized warfare, but many felt his motivations were too simplistic to carry deeper meaning. Audience demographics also played a role in shaping the film's reception. The film was particularly popular among older viewers and fans of traditional action cinema. Its focus on a middle-aged hero dealing with chronic pain, aging, and disillusionment resonated with a demographic often underserved by youth-focused blockbusters. Younger audiences, while perhaps less emotionally invested, still found entertainment in the set pieces and pacing. Social media responses were largely positive, with many praising the return to grounded action and sharing admiration for the performances of Butler and Nolte. Online discussion also generated some humorous memes and parodies, particularly around the recurring theme of Gerard Butler's character always being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The running joke that Mike Banning can't catch a break became a minor internet trend, with fans posting exaggerated scenarios of what could fall next: Mars, the moon, or Banning himself. While this meme culture didn't dominate pop culture, it helped maintain the film's presence online and indicated a level of engagement beyond just ticket sales. The release of Angel Has Fallen in 2019 marked the third installment in a franchise that had evolved steadily over time. Beginning with Olympus Has Fallen in 2013, the series introduced audiences to Mike Banning, a gritty and morally complex Secret Service agent played by Gerard Butler. By the time Angel Has Fallen premiered, the franchise had established a distinct identity among modern action films, rooted in practical effects, a no-nonsense tone, and a protagonist who was defined more by his resilience than by superhuman strength or charm. The film's legacy, while not as loud or expansive as major blockbuster franchises, has proven meaningful in several key ways, shaping character-driven action narratives, redefining expectations for aging action stars, and influencing the direction of mid-budget thrillers in a high-stakes, cinematic landscape. One of the most notable aspects of Angel Has Fallen's legacy is its role in reasserting the viability of mid-budget action films in an era increasingly dominated by superhero franchises and CGI-laden epics. With a budget of around $40 million, the film succeeded commercially, earning over $146 million worldwide. This demonstrated that there was still a strong market for grounded, character-focused action movies that didn't rely on intellectual property from comic books or fantasy franchises. In an entertainment industry that often favors spectacle over substance, Angel Has Fallen served as proof that audiences could still be drawn to stories centered on flawed human beings dealing with realistic challenges, even if those stories involved shootouts and high-stakes political conspiracies. The film's grounded approach influenced how action heroes were written in subsequent years. Mike Banning, as portrayed in this film, is vulnerable, exhausted, and psychologically battered. Rather than depicting a hero immune to harm, Angel Has Fallen focused on the cost of violence and the burden of survival. Banning's injuries, his reliance on painkillers, and his struggle with post-traumatic stress added a layer of realism and empathy. This depiction of a hero battling both external enemies and internal demons subtly shifted expectations within the genre. It helped pave the way for other action films and TV series that prioritized character depth over invincibility, including stories like The Old Guard, Reacher, and Extraction, which feature protagonists who are powerful but emotionally and physically scarred. Angel Has Fallen also played a role in redefining the career trajectory of Gerard Butler. After a series of uneven roles post-300, Butler found his most consistent success through the Fallen series. The third installment especially allowed him to showcase emotional range and depth, moving beyond the stoic toughness he was known for. The film's reception reaffirmed his status as a reliable action lead, particularly in roles that required more than just physical prowess. This led to renewed interest in his career and helped greenlight similar projects like Greenland, a disaster thriller that leaned more heavily on emotional storytelling than pure action. In a sense, Angel Has Fallen marked a turning point where Butler's identity as an action star matured into something more layered and substantial. From a franchise standpoint, the film helped close a loose thematic arc while also leaving the door open for future installments. The ending, which shows Banning seeking therapy and beginning to confront the psychological toll of his profession, offers a note of personal closure that was absent from the previous films. Yet it also suggested room for continuation, perhaps through a story where Banning works behind the scenes, becomes a mentor, or transitions to a new form of service. While there has been ongoing discussion about a possible fourth film, or even a television spin-off that expands the universe, nothing has yet materialized. Still, the groundwork laid by Angel Has Fallen, especially its emphasis on internal conflict and moral ambiguity, has influenced what fans would expect from future entries. Beyond direct sequels, the film's legacy also includes its contribution to the popular narrative of conspiracy-driven thrillers in modern cinema. While political thrillers have always been a staple of the genre, Angel Has Fallen offered a distinctly post-2010s take on institutional distrust and the privatization of military force. Its villain, a former soldier turned defense contractor who exploits national security systems for personal gain, reflected anxieties about the growing power of private firms in global conflict. This theme resonated in a time when many audiences were skeptical of government transparency and corporate influence, particularly in the context of real-world defense contracts and surveillance technologies. The film's engagement with these issues helped keep those conversations relevant in the realm of popular entertainment. Its portrayal of mental health, while not the central theme, also had a quiet influence. Mike Banning's acknowledgement of his injuries and eventual turn toward therapy, while subtle, marked a rare moment in action cinema where emotional healing was shown as part of a hero's journey. This representation challenged long-standing norms in the genre, where pain is often ignored or suppressed. The film didn't glorify suffering, it showed it as something that needed to be addressed. This narrative choice contributed to a broader movement in storytelling that allowed male protagonists to express vulnerability without losing their strength. Subsequent films and series have increasingly embraced this complexity, recognizing that audiences connect more deeply with characters who reflect real emotional struggles. In pop culture terms, Angel Has Fallen never reached the meme status of larger franchises, but it did cultivate a devoted fan base and generate online content, particularly around its recurring premise. Fans humorously speculated what might fall next, from planets to concepts, creating exaggerated titles like Gravity Has Fallen or Sanity Has Fallen. While playful in nature, this engagement reflected the franchise's recognizable formula and its place in the broader cultural lexicon. The very predictability of the titles became part of the charm. Viewers knew what to expect, and they embraced it with a mixture of affection and satire. This type of audience interaction helped keep the series relevant in online discourse even after its theatrical run had ended. The film also had a quiet influence on how action films handle fatherhood and generational trauma. The introduction of Clay Banning, played by Nick Nolte, brought a new layer to the series by addressing themes of abandonment, reconciliation, and inherited resilience. Their relationship, marked by mutual respect, unresolved pain, and eventual healing, offered an emotional thread that stood out in a genre more known for bullets than bonding. This emphasis on intergenerational connection influenced other action narratives that began to incorporate family dynamics more deeply, such as Logan, Man on Fire, and even entries in the Fast and Furious series. It became increasingly clear that audiences appreciated action movies that made space for emotional depth alongside explosions. Audiences responded to Angel Has Fallen in ways that reflected a changing landscape in both cinema and society. More than just an action film, Angel Has Fallen resonated with viewers on emotional, generational, and thematic levels. While critics offered mixed reviews, audience reactions painted a different picture, one grounded in empathy for the protagonist, nostalgia for a certain kind of action storytelling, and a deeper appreciation for the film's handling of vulnerability, responsibility, and legacy. The reflections from diverse viewers highlighted how the film managed to strike a chord beyond its surface as a political thriller, especially with audiences who had grown up watching traditional action heroes and now saw a version of themselves in a character who is aging, hurting, and questioning his place in the world. For many, one of the most striking aspects of the film was the portrayal of Mike Banning's inner struggles. Audiences, particularly men in their 30s to 60s, found a powerful connection to Banning's physical and mental deterioration. This wasn't the invincible warrior of decades past. Instead, Banning is depicted as a man quietly battling chronic pain, fatigue, and trauma, realities that resonate with people navigating the pressures of aging, physical limitations, and emotional burnout. The honest depiction of post-traumatic stress and the toll of a lifetime spent in service was seen by many as rare and refreshingly human in an action film. Rather than glorify violence or stoic endurance, Angel Has Fallen subtly acknowledged that strength sometimes lies in seeking help, confronting pain, and choosing to continue fighting despite brokenness. This emotional honesty led many viewers to interpret the film as a commentary on the cost of duty. Banning's refusal to give up, even when every part of him is telling him to quit, mirrored the struggles of those balancing professional obligations with personal crises. For veterans, law enforcement officers, first responders, and others in high-stress roles, Banning's story felt personal. Some audience members, especially those with military backgrounds, noted how the film reflected the invisible wounds that service can leave behind. Discussions in online forums and social media posts often highlighted scenes where Banning's exhaustion was palpable, where he hesitated, or where he admitted fear, not as weaknesses, but as moments of truth. These scenes prompted many to reflect on how society perceives strength and what it means to be a protector. The father-son dynamic between Mike and Clay Banning struck another emotional chord. For older viewers, particularly fathers who may have been estranged from their children or struggled with unresolved pasts, the reconciliation arc offered a kind of catharsis. Clay's eccentric yet heartfelt presence brought humor and humanity to the story, and the scenes of bonding through survival rather than conversation resonated deeply. Younger viewers, too, found meaning in the dynamic, seeing in Mike's journey the echoes of their own relationships with distant or emotionally unavailable fathers. The film sparked conversations about generational trauma, forgiveness, and the long road to healing. While the film didn't dwell excessively on this subplot, audiences picked up on its quiet significance, interpreting the ending, where Banning begins therapy, as a hopeful sign that cycles of pain and silence could be broken. In terms of generational reflection, Angel Has Fallen appealed strongly to an audience that grew up with the 80s and 90s era of action cinema. Viewers familiar with films like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, and Rambo appreciated the film's return to grounded action and personal stakes. In an era when many blockbusters are dominated by CGI spectacle and ensemble casts, Angel Has Fallen felt like a return of form, a reminder of when action movies followed one man on a focused, dangerous, and often personal mission. The film's aesthetic and narrative structure brought nostalgia, and for many viewers, it was a refreshing change of pace. This nostalgia wasn't just about style, but also about values: duty, honor, sacrifice, and the struggle to stay good in a world where lines are increasingly blurred. Younger audiences, though generally less emotionally connected to Banning's struggles, still found enjoyment in the film's pacing, set pieces, and emotional core. Some interpreted Banning's journey as a broader metaphor for burnout in modern society, the idea of constantly being on guard, pushed past one's limits, and forced to hide vulnerability. Others responded to the themes of surveillance, institutional betrayal, and corporate corruption, seeing them as reflections of real-world concerns about government overreach and privatized security forces. The film's antagonist, a former soldier turned contractor who manipulates the system for personal gain, prompted discussions about loyalty, ideology, and the dangers of unchecked power. This interpretation gave the film a more political edge, especially for audiences tuned into current events. There were also gendered dimensions to audience interpretation. While the film's core demographic skewed male, many female viewers appreciated the emotional maturity of Banning's character. His relationship with Leah Banning, his wife, was viewed by some as a more balanced and respectful partnership than is typical in action films. Leah is not just a passive character. She represents stability, family, and grounding, and her scenes with Mike highlighted a tenderness rarely explored in the genre. Audience reactions on social platforms noted how their dynamic avoided cliches of damsel in distress or emotionally distant spouse. Instead, Leah served as a mirror to Mike's struggle, a person who saw his pain and still stood by him, pushing him toward healing without judgment. Some viewers also connected with the film's emphasis on identity. Mike Banning, framed and hunted by the very system he protected, finds himself questioning who he is without the badge, the gun, or the uniform. This journey of rediscovery resonated with those experiencing career transitions, personal crises, or identity shifts, whether due to injury, retirement, or evolving roles in life. The idea that one's worth persists even when stripped of title or recognition was a message that found deep resonance. The film doesn't offer easy answers, but its ending, where Mike begins therapy and faces an uncertain future, was interpreted by many as a courageous act of redefining oneself. International audiences responded in different, but equally reflective ways. In regions where distrust in government institutions runs high, the film's themes of internal corruption and betrayal struck a particular chord. The idea of being scapegoated by those in power, of uncovering a web of deception orchestrated by trusted allies, was not just a plot device, it was a narrative with real-world echoes. Audience members in various countries noted how the film felt timely, speaking to fears about systemic failure, erosion of public trust, and the precarious nature of loyalty in hierarchical systems. In this light, Banning's journey wasn't just a personal one, it was a reflection of broader societal disillusionment. Angel Has Fallen presents a rich tapestry of character development that goes beyond the standard action movie fare. At the center is Mike Banning, whose journey from a loyal Secret Service agent to a hunted fugitive and finally to a man confronting his own vulnerabilities forms the emotional core of the film. This installment deepens Mike's character, showing a transformation that is as much psychological as it is physical, and introduces supporting characters whose arcs interplay with his, creating a layered narrative about loyalty, trust, family, and redemption. Mike Banning, portrayed by Gerard Butler, starts the film already battered and struggling. Physically weakened by years of service, haunted by injuries and personal loss, he embodies the archetype of the weathered warrior. However, Angel Has Fallen takes care to avoid turning Mike into a cliched action hero. Instead, the film explores his limitations, his dependence on painkillers, his bouts of exhaustion, and the psychological toll of relentless duty. His arc is about survival on multiple levels. He must survive assassination attempts, clear his name, and ultimately, survive the internal battles with fear, guilt, and trust. Early in the film, Mike is portrayed as loyal almost to a fault. He is willing to sacrifice everything to protect President Trumbull, but this loyalty becomes a double-edged sword when he is framed for an assassination attempt. The betrayal shakes Mike to his core, forcing him to question not only who he can trust, but also his own identity as a protector. This conflict drives the film's tension and acts as a crucible for Mike's growth. Rather than becoming bitter or vengeful, Mike channels his pain into determination. The arc follows his shift from a man defined by his job to one who must redefine his sense of self apart from it. As Mike goes on the run, his relationship with his family becomes central to his development. The reintroduction of his estranged father, Clay Banning, played by Nick Nolte, adds complexity and emotional depth. Clay's arc intersects with Mike's in ways that explore themes of abandonment, reconciliation, and inherited strength. Clay, a rugged and unpredictable figure, initially appears as a rough foil to Mike's disciplined demeanor. Their interactions reveal a fraught history marked by distance and misunderstanding. Through shared hardship, the two begin to rebuild a connection, allowing both characters to confront long-suppressed emotions. Clay's journey from a stubborn loner to a supportive ally mirrors Mike's path toward emotional openness. Leah Banning, Mike's wife, portrayed by Jada Pinkett Smith, serves as an emotional anchor. Her role, though less physically demanding, is crucial in humanizing Mike and grounding the narrative. Throughout the film, Leah remains a steady presence, embodying patience, love, and quiet strength. Her arc focuses on navigating the uncertainty of Mike's dangerous world while maintaining hope for his eventual return to emotional and physical health. Their relationship is portrayed with nuance. The strain of Mike's trauma and secrecy creates tension, but their bond ultimately affirms the importance of support and partnership in healing. Leah's character development is subtle but significant. She evolves from a worried spouse to an active participant in Mike's journey toward recovery. President Alan Trumbull, played by Morgan Freeman, acts as both a symbol of authority and a personal test for Mike. His arc is less about transformation and more about the dynamics of trust and leadership. As Mike is accused of attempting to assassinate Trumbull, their relationship embodies the tension between duty and suspicion. Trumbull's initial disbelief in Mike's innocence contrasts with his later recognition of the truth, illustrating themes of justice and the burden of leadership. Though Trumbull does not change dramatically, his presence reinforces the stakes of Mike's mission and the larger political context surrounding their personal drama. The antagonist, Wade Ellman, portrayed by Nick Wexler, provides a dark mirror to Mike's character. Elman's arc is a descent into corruption and fanaticism, driven by a twisted sense of patriotism and resentment. His motivations stem from bitterness about being overlooked and a belief that the system is flawed, leading him to justify extreme measures. Elman's character development highlights the dangers of unchecked ambition and moral compromise. His manipulations challenge Mike not only physically but ideologically, forcing the protagonist to confront what it truly means to serve and protect. Elman's arc culminates in his exposure and downfall, serving as a narrative counterpoint to Mike's redemption. Other supporting characters, such as Agent Robinson and Colonel Chambers, contribute to the evolving landscape of trust and betrayal. Their shifting allegiances and moments of doubt add layers to the story's intrigue. The interplay between these characters and Mike further complicates his journey, as he must navigate a world where allies are not always clear and enemies wear familiar faces. This dynamic reinforces the theme of isolation and the difficulty of discerning truth in a complex political environment. The film also emphasizes Mike's internal arc, his gradual acknowledgement of his vulnerabilities, and the importance of healing. Scenes where he is forced to slow down, seek help, or confront his pain mark critical turning points. For instance, the decision to attend therapy near the film's conclusion signals a breakthrough in Mike's acceptance of his need for emotional support. This shift from silent endurance to active self-care challenges traditional notions of masculinity in the action genre. Mike's character arc thus becomes a story of growth not only through external conflict, but also through internal transformation. Clay's presence adds another dimension to Mike's arc by highlighting the theme of legacy. Mike's struggles are not isolated. They are part of a generational chain of sacrifice and survival. Through their interactions, the film explores how family history shapes identity and how reconciliation can break cycles of pain. Clay's willingness to confront his own past mistakes and support Mike's quest adds a layer of emotional resonance and realism. The supporting roles, though less developed, serve to enhance the main arcs by embodying broader themes. The Secret Service agents represent the blurred lines between loyalty and suspicion, while political figures embody the pressures and compromises of power. Each character's decisions and allegiances reflect different facets of trust and betrayal, reinforcing Mike's isolation and the stakes of his mission. The costume and set design in Angel Has Fallen play crucial roles in establishing the film's tone, setting, and character identity, enhancing the storytelling through visual cues that support both narrative and emotional beats. Unlike many action films that prioritize spectacle over subtlety, this movie uses costume and production design thoughtfully to communicate character traits, social dynamics, and thematic undercurrents, grounding the story in a realistic, immersive world. Costume design, led by the film's costume department, focuses on practicality and authenticity, reflecting the characters' personalities and their evolving journeys. Mike Banning's wardrobe is emblematic of his role as a hardened Secret Service agent and a man battling physical limitations. His costumes mostly consist of tactical gear, subdued earth tones, and rugged fabrics that highlight his no-nonsense approach and readiness for combat. The use of durable, functional clothing also underscores Mike's identity as someone who operates in high-stakes environments where appearance takes a backseat to utility. His costumes rarely change dramatically throughout the film, reinforcing the idea that Mike is a man defined by his duty and burdened by his injuries. Subtle details like scuffs, dirt, and wear on his clothing visually narrate his ongoing physical struggles and the toll of his lifestyle. Leah Banning's costumes contrast with Mike's ruggedness, often featuring softer fabrics, layered outfits, and casual yet elegant styling that reflect her role as a stabilizing presence. Her wardrobe choices communicate warmth, resilience, and modern femininity, providing a visual counterbalance to Mike's world of danger and physicality. Leah's costumes also emphasize the domestic sphere and emotional support she provides, grounding the film's action within the context of family and personal relationships. Scenes where she is dressed in comfortable, earth-toned clothing help create a sense of intimacy and safety, marking the home as a refuge amidst the chaos. Clay Banning's costume design stands out for its rugged, outdoorsman aesthetic. His clothing is utilitarian and worn, featuring flannel shirts, leather jackets, and denim, an intentional contrast to Mike's tactical gear. This wardrobe choice visually represents Clay's rough, independent spirit and his estranged, less polished role as Mike's father. The simplicity and earthiness of Clay's costumes underscore his connection to nature and a different kind of strength, one rooted in survival and resilience outside institutional frameworks. Clay's attire evolves subtly as the relationship with Mike warms, with moments of vulnerability reflected in softer layers or slightly more cared-for appearances, symbolizing emotional thaw and reconciliation. President Trumbull and other political figures wear formal, tailored suits that reinforce their authority and the seriousness of their positions. These costumes are meticulously designed to exude power and professionalism, often in darker or neutral colors to emphasize gravitas. The contrast between political formality and the roughness of Mike and Clay's costumes visually delineates the worlds these characters inhabit: bureaucratic order versus rugged individualism. The attention to detail in these costumes, including accessories like ties, lapel pins, and polished shoes, highlights the calculated image management inherent in political life. The antagonist, Wade Ellman, is outfitted in a manner that underscores his background as a military contractor and his descent into extremism. His clothing includes tactical vests, dark jackets, and gloves, designed to convey menace and professionalism but also a cold detachment. The darker palette of his costumes, combined with his sometimes disheveled appearance, visually signals his moral ambiguity and growing instability. This wardrobe helps create a subtle visual hierarchy between Ellman and Mike, emphasizing Ellman's role as both a formidable opponent and a corrupted mirror image of Mike's own former self. Set design throughout Angel Has Fallen is both expansive and intimate, carefully crafted to enhance the film's tension and realism. The film moves through a variety of locations, from the high-security corridors of the White House to sprawling rural landscapes and gritty, isolated cabins. Each setting is designed to reflect the story's escalating stakes and the protagonist's emotional journey. The White House and associated government buildings are depicted with a sleek, modern aesthetic, featuring clean lines, polished surfaces, and imposing architectural elements. These sets convey institutional power and surveillance, underscoring themes of control, hierarchy, and political maneuvering. The use of reflective glass, steel, and controlled lighting within these environments creates a cold, almost clinical atmosphere that contrasts sharply with Mike's ruggedness. The tension between these environments and Mike's character visually represents his alienation and the institutional forces working against him. In contrast, the rural and wilderness settings, particularly the cabin where Mike and Clay seek refuge, are designed to feel raw and authentic. Natural materials like wood, stone, and earth tones dominate, creating an atmosphere of survival and retreat. The set design here evokes a sense of primal struggle and familial connection, with cozy but sparse interiors that emphasize the characters' vulnerability and dependence on each other. The careful attention to detail, such as worn furniture, practical tools, and natural lighting, immerses the audience in a world where technology and urban sophistication are absent, forcing characters to rely on basic skills and trust. Urban settings like the streets and safe houses are designed with a gritty realism that heightens suspense. Muted colors, worn textures, and tight framing create a sense of claustrophobia and danger. These sets serve as liminal spaces where trust is scarce and threats lurk unseen. The contrast between these environments and the sterile government buildings visually supports the film's narrative of escaping institutional corruption and seeking truth in the margins. Special attention was given to the design of action set pieces, including the intense helicopter rescue and the climactic standoff in the woods. These sets blend practical effects with controlled environments to maximize realism and tension. The physicality of these locations, rocks, trees, open terrain, plays into the choreography of the action, allowing characters to interact naturally with their surroundings. This grounded approach to set design supports the film's commitment to portraying action that feels believable and earned rather than purely spectacular. Lighting within sets also plays a significant role in mood creation and storytelling. The use of shadows, natural light, and muted palettes helps create atmospheres ranging from oppressive surveillance states to intimate, human moments. Scenes inside the White House or government offices often employ cooler, more artificial lighting, reinforcing themes of control and surveillance, while scenes outdoors or at home use warmer, softer lighting to highlight humanity and vulnerability. The dialogue and scriptwriting in Angel Has Fallen are pivotal elements that shape the film's tone, pace, and emotional resonance. While action films often prioritize spectacle over words, this movie balances high-octane sequences with dialogue that advances character development, heightens tension, and injects moments of levity and humanity. The screenplay crafts a narrative that is accessible but layered, ensuring that conversations feel purposeful and reveal deeper insights into the characters and the stakes they face. The film's dialogue is marked by a directness that fits the genre's fast pace, yet it avoids being overly expositional or cliched. The screenwriters carefully balance terse, efficient exchanges during action scenes with more extended, emotionally charged conversations during quieter moments. This duality helps maintain momentum while providing space for the audience to connect with the characters on a personal level. Mike Banning's lines are often clipped and to the point, reflecting his military background and no-nonsense approach, but they also occasionally reveal vulnerability or frustration, especially in interactions with his wife Leah or his father Clay. One of the screenplay's strengths is its use of subtext and implication, particularly in scenes involving trust and betrayal. Rather than spelling everything out, characters often speak in measured tones with layered meanings, creating an undercurrent of suspicion and tension. For example, exchanges between Mike and government officials or fellow agents carry a charged ambiguity, as words hint at hidden agendas or unspoken doubts. This subtlety enhances the thriller aspect of the film, inviting viewers to read between the lines and question characters' motives. Memorable lines in the film tend to emerge from moments of high emotion or confrontation. Mike's quiet but firm declarations of loyalty and determination serve as thematic touchstones. One standout line is when Mike asserts his commitment to protect the president despite being framed. This line encapsulates his core values and drives the narrative forward. Such dialogue moments provide emotional anchors amid the chaos, reinforcing Mike's integrity and resilience. The script also employs humor strategically, mostly through dry wit or sardonic remarks. This humor serves multiple purposes. It humanizes Mike Banning, breaks tension, and makes the characters more relatable. Rather than relying on broad jokes, the humor is situational and character-driven, often arising naturally from Mike's gruff demeanor or the absurdity of certain predicaments. For instance, Mike's exchanges with his father Clay include some biting but affectionate barbs that highlight their complicated relationship while providing moments of levity. Exposition is handled with care to avoid bogging down the narrative. Crucial plot points, such as the framing of Mike or the conspiracy against the president, are revealed through a combination of dialogue, visual clues, and action. The script avoids heavy-handed info dumps by integrating explanations into natural conversations or briefings, maintaining narrative flow and audience engagement. For example, government officials and agents discuss security breaches and political stakes in a way that feels organic to their roles, keeping the audience informed without sacrificing pace. Conversely, the pacing of conversations varies to match the scene's intensity. During action sequences, dialogue is minimal and sharp, often serving to coordinate or convey urgent information. In contrast, quieter scenes allow for more reflective or emotionally rich exchanges. This variation helps control the film's rhythm, giving viewers moments to breathe and reflect between adrenaline-pumping set pieces. It also allows for character development through dialogue that reveals motivations, fears, and relationships. The relationship between Mike and Leah is explored through dialogue that conveys both affection and strain. Their conversations capture the complexity of a marriage tested by trauma and secrecy. Leah's lines often express concern and frustration, balancing Mike's guardedness and highlighting the emotional costs of his dangerous profession. These exchanges deepen the film's emotional stakes and give the audience insight into Mike's personal life beyond his role as an agent. Similarly, dialogue between Mike and his father Clay is crucial in revealing backstory and character motivations. Their verbal sparring and moments of honesty peel back layers of estrangement and pain, allowing the audience to witness a gradual reconciliation. The script uses these interactions to explore themes of forgiveness, legacy, and the impact of family on personal identity. The contrast between Clay's blunt, sometimes abrasive speech and Mike's controlled, measured tone underscores their differing worldviews and personalities. The antagonist's dialogue serves to establish their menace and ideology. Wade Ellman and his cohorts speak with a mix of calculated coldness and fervor, revealing their motivations rooted in disillusionment and extremism. Their lines often carry a sense of justification for their actions, providing insight into their worldview and making them more than one-dimensional villains. This complexity enriches the narrative by framing the conflict as not merely physical, but ideological. The script also includes moments of political dialogue that situate the film within a broader context of power struggles and governance. Exchanges involving President Trumbull and his advisors illustrate the challenges of leadership amid crisis, the balancing act between security and civil liberties, and the murky nature of political alliances. These conversations add depth to the film's setting and underscore the high stakes beyond individual characters. In terms of style, the screenplay employs concise sentences and active language, fitting the genre's demand for brisk storytelling. The dialogue avoids unnecessary flourish or verbosity, focusing instead on clarity and impact. This approach supports the film's tight pacing and ensures that conversations propel the plot or reveal character rather than distract. The script's tone oscillates between seriousness and restrained emotion, matching the film's blend of thriller intensity and human drama. Tension building through dialogue is another notable feature. Scenes where Mike faces interrogation or negotiation are layered with psychological stakes, with characters choosing words carefully to manipulate, deceive, or probe. The use of pauses, interruptions, and shifting tones creates a sense of unpredictability and danger. This verbal chess game heightens suspense and keeps viewers engaged in the unfolding mystery and conspiracy. The screenplay's ability to balance multiple narrative threads, action, personal drama, political intrigue, is reflected in how dialogue transitions smoothly between these elements. Conversations pivot from intimate moments to broader discussions of security or strategy without losing coherence. This fluidity ensures the story remains cohesive despite its complexity. Finally, the closing dialogue of the film offers resolution and hope without being overly sentimental. Mike's decision to seek therapy and reconcile with his past is conveyed through a simple but powerful conversation, signaling character growth and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. These final exchanges leave the audience with a sense of closure and emotional payoff. The marketing and promotion of Angel Has Fallen were designed to maximize audience awareness, generate excitement, and position the film as a thrilling continuation of a popular action franchise. The campaign leveraged a mix of traditional advertising, digital outreach, social media engagement, and strategic partnerships to reach a wide demographic, particularly targeting fans of the previous films, action enthusiasts, and viewers attracted to political thrillers. The marketing strategy balanced highlighting the star power of Gerard Butler with emphasizing the film's intense action sequences and emotional stakes. One of the first steps in the promotional campaign was the release of official posters and teaser trailers months before the film's debut. The posters focused on Mike Banning's gritty image, often depicting Gerard Butler in tactical gear, battered and determined, against backdrops of explosions or the White House, visually communicating the film's high stakes. The tagline, often variations of "Trust no one" or "The hunter becomes the hunted," reinforced the theme of betrayal and suspense. These visual and textual elements were crafted to intrigue fans and casual viewers alike, promising both thrilling action and a layered conspiracy plot. The teaser trailer introduced the premise succinctly, showing intense action scenes, dramatic confrontations, and moments of personal struggle for Banning. It avoided revealing major plot twists, instead focusing on building tension through quick cuts and escalating music. The initial reaction to the teaser helped establish expectations for a fast-paced, emotionally charged action thriller. Following the teaser, full trailers were released closer to the premiere date, offering a deeper look at the story, key characters, and larger set pieces. These trailers balanced exposition with spectacle, ensuring audiences understood the stakes without spoiling key surprises. Social media played a central role in the film's marketing strategy. Official accounts on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook regularly posted behind-the-scenes photos, short video clips, and character spotlights. These posts encouraged fan interaction through contests, polls, and hashtags such as #AngelHasFallen. The social media campaign aimed to build a sense of community among fans and maintain buzz during the months leading up to release. Clips showcasing Gerard Butler's stunts and fight choreography were particularly popular, highlighting the physicality and realism of the action. The marketing team also capitalized on Gerard Butler's popularity by scheduling interviews, talk show appearances, and press junkets that allowed him to discuss the film's challenges, themes, and his character's development. These appearances helped humanize the promotional campaign, connecting the actor's enthusiasm with fans and generating media coverage. Butler's candid discussions about the physical demands of the role and his preparation added authenticity to the campaign and increased interest in the film's action sequences. Strategic partnerships expanded the film's reach beyond traditional advertising. Collaborations with brands in the technology and automotive sectors featured tie-ins that connected with the film's high-tech espionage elements and fast-paced chases. Branded content and product placements within the film also served promotional purposes, aligning the movie with contemporary trends and lifestyles. These partnerships were carefully integrated to avoid overshadowing the story, instead enhancing the immersive experience. Merchandising played a smaller but notable role in promotion, with action figures, apparel, and collectibles targeting die-hard fans of the franchise. While the range was not as extensive as in some blockbuster franchises, these items helped maintain the film's presence in pop culture and provided tangible ways for fans to engage beyond the cinema. Limited edition posters and signed memorabilia were also part of promotional giveaways and fan events. The marketing campaign included innovative digital strategies, such as augmented reality filters on social media platforms, allowing users to simulate tactical gear or experience scenes from the film. These interactive elements boosted engagement, particularly among younger demographics, and demonstrated the campaign's willingness to embrace new technologies to enhance audience connection. Additionally, the use of targeted ads on streaming platforms and video sharing sites ensured the film reached viewers who regularly consume action and thriller content online. Pre-release screenings and fan events were organized in key cities, generating word-of-mouth buzz and allowing select audiences to experience the film early. These events often featured Q&A sessions with cast and crew, further deepening fan investment and creating media stories that amplified anticipation. Positive reactions from these screenings were strategically used in marketing materials, with excerpts of favorable reviews and audience reactions displayed on posters and trailers. The timing of the release was carefully chosen to avoid heavy competition from other major blockbusters, aiming to maximize box office potential. The film's international rollout included localized marketing efforts tailored to different regions, recognizing the global appeal of action films. Trailers and promotional materials were adapted linguistically and culturally to resonate with diverse audiences, enhancing worldwide reception. In the lead-up to the premiere, a concentrated push occurred across multiple channels: television commercials, online ads, influencer partnerships, and print media, creating a saturation effect that kept the film top of mind. This multi-platform approach ensured broad demographic coverage and capitalized on different consumption habits. Influencers specializing in film and entertainment often shared reviews or commentary, further extending the film's digital footprint. Following the theatrical release, continued marketing efforts included digital campaigns encouraging streaming and digital purchase, keeping the film relevant beyond cinemas. Additional content such as directors' commentaries, making of documentaries, and deleted scenes were released online, appealing to fans interested in deeper exploration of the film's production and story. In summary, the marketing and promotion of Angel Has Fallen were comprehensive and multifaceted, combining traditional advertising with innovative digital engagement and strategic partnerships. The campaign effectively leveraged star power, action set pieces, and emotional storytelling to attract a diverse audience. Through careful timing, targeted messaging, and interactive content, The promotion helped position the film as a must-see action thriller while maintaining fan loyalty to the franchise. The balanced approach ensured the movie's visibility across platforms and demographics, contributing to its commercial success and cultural footprint. Angel Has Fallen occupies a distinctive place within the action thriller genre, and comparing it to similar films, earlier adaptations, and other works by its creative team helps illuminate its unique contributions as well as its alignment with established tropes. This analysis considers the movie's relation to its predecessors in the Fallen series, its position alongside comparable political action thrillers, and how its tone, style, and storytelling choices differentiate it within a crowded field. Firstly, Angel Has Fallen is the third installment in the Fallen trilogy, following Olympus Has Fallen, 2013, and London Has Fallen, 2016. All three films center on Gerard Butler's character Mike Banning, a skilled Secret Service agent facing escalating threats to the president and national security. Compared to the previous films, Angel Has Fallen adopts a more personal and introspective approach, shifting the narrative focus from large-scale terror attacks and citywide destruction to a story about betrayal, survival, and redemption. Where Olympus and London emphasized overwhelming external threats, this film internalizes the conflict, making Mike's struggle more intimate and character-driven. This tonal shift sets Angel Has Fallen apart from its predecessors. While still packed with intense action and explosive set pieces, the film places greater weight on character relationships, particularly between Mike and his family, and explores themes of trust and trauma more deeply. The pacing in Angel allows for more contemplative moments, giving audiences a break from relentless action and enhancing emotional investment. This evolution in tone can be seen as an attempt to mature the franchise and broaden its appeal beyond pure adrenaline junkies to viewers interested in character complexity. In terms of narrative structure, Angel Has Fallen introduces a framing device uncommon in the previous films. The protagonist himself is framed and hunted, turning the hunter into the hunted. This inversion adds layers of suspense and mystery absent from earlier installments, where Mike was clearly the hero combating external enemies. The plot's conspiracy elements and questions of loyalty add a psychological thriller dimension, aligning the film with works like The Fugitive or Enemy of the State, where protagonists must clear their names while uncovering hidden threats. Comparing Angel Has Fallen to other political action thrillers, it shares genre conventions such as high-stakes government intrigue, elite security forces, and threats to national leadership. However, it distinguishes itself through its focus on the personal costs of violence and service. Unlike many political thrillers that center on ideological battles or espionage, Angel emphasizes the human toll on those charged with protecting power, exploring physical and psychological scars. This approach aligns it more closely with films like Taken or Jack Reacher, where the protagonist's personal code and emotional journey are central. The film's visual and stylistic choices also set it apart. While many contemporary action thrillers rely heavily on CGI and hyper-stylized visuals, Angel Has Fallen employs a grounded aesthetic, emphasizing practical effects, gritty cinematography, and realistic fight choreography. This choice echoes trends in modern action cinema favoring tangible, visceral realism over spectacle, enhancing immersion and credibility. In this respect, the film resonates with works like the Bourne Identity series, which also prioritize realism and character over flashiness. Director Rick Romanwau's influence is notable in the film's tone and style. Known for directing gritty, character-focused dramas and action films, Waugh brings a more grounded sensibility to the franchise, steering away from over-the-top destruction toward character-driven storytelling. Compared to the previous directors in the series, his approach is more intimate and nuanced. Waugh's emphasis on authentic performances and emotional depth is evident in the film's dialogue and character interactions, setting Angel apart from more straightforward action fare. The casting of Gerard Butler continues to anchor the series, but in Angel Has Fallen, his portrayal gains complexity. His performance balances physical toughness with vulnerability, which contrasts with his more one-dimensional heroics in earlier films. This growth reflects the film's broader thematic evolution. Compared to other action heroes of the 2010s, Butler's Mike Banning in Angel is less about invincibility and more about resilience and human endurance. In terms of plot devices, Angel Has Fallen uses familiar tropes such as government conspiracies, betrayals within trusted circles, and the lone hero fighting to clear his name. While these elements are common across the genre, the film distinguishes itself through its layered character motivations and the interplay between personal and political stakes. The script avoids purely black and white portrayals of good and evil, offering antagonists with understandable grievances and protagonists facing moral ambiguities. This complexity enhances the narrative's sophistication. The film's action choreography is another point of comparison. It favors close-quarters combat, tactical maneuvers, and realistic firearm use, contrasting with more fantastical or heavily CGI-dependent action films. This approach contributes to the film's grounded tone and aligns it with contemporary trends emphasizing physicality and stunt work. The fight scenes often serve character and plot development rather than spectacle alone, reinforcing the story's emotional stakes. Compared to other entries in the broader genre of presidential security thrillers, Angel Has Fallen shares thematic elements with movies like In the Line of Fire or Air Force One, but its trilogy format allows for deeper exploration of character continuity and growth. The ongoing saga of Mike Banning creates a cumulative effect, where previous films' events influence character motivations and audience expectations. Angel Has Fallen capitalizes on this history, rewarding longtime viewers while maintaining accessibility for new audiences. The film's reception and commercial performance also provide comparative insights. While it did not redefine the genre, it demonstrated the viability of mid-budget action thrillers centered on strong lead performances and grounded storytelling. This success contrasts with some high-profile tentpole films that relied on massive budgets and special effects but underperformed critically or financially. Angel Has Fallen's ability to deliver solid entertainment with restrained resources is a notable achievement in the contemporary film market. Finally, when compared to potential sequels or spin-offs, Angel Has Fallen sets a precedent for a more character-driven narrative arc in future installments. Its emphasis on personal redemption, psychological depth, and realistic action could serve as a template for evolving the franchise beyond typical genre constraints. Any subsequent films would likely benefit from maintaining this balance, appealing to audiences seeking both thrills and emotional substance.